Risky. That was Operation Market Garden, which nearly finished the Second World War in September 1944. Montgomery received priority for this plan at the cost of Bradley, who would operate over a broad front with the main point in the Elzas. From the Albert Channel via Eindhoven, Nijmegen, Arnhem to the IJssel Lake, that was the first target. The Germans in West Netherlands and Northwest Belgium would be isolated from their homeland. The gates of the North German lowlands and to the Ruhr would be open. The biggest air landing operation in the history formed the first phase. The 101st US Airborne Division landed near Eindhoven on the 17th of September 1944, the 82nd near Nijmegen and the British 1st Airborne Division near Arnhem. On that day, the British Guards Armored Division broke through to Valkenswaard and reached Nijmegen in the afternoon of the 19th, where the Americans took strong positions. Also, they didn't get the chance to break the German defense at the bridges. In this, they managed in an audacious combined operation on Wednesday the 20th of September. In the afternoon, with clear weather, American paratroops crossed the River Waal in canvas boats west of the city. In the early evening, the tanks of the Grenadier Guards forced the entrances to the huge bridge. In the evening, the distance to the brave men of Arnhem was only 6 miles. The fierce resistance of the Germans, amongst whom the 10th SS Division Freundsberg, prevented a fast breakthrough. On the 26th of September, the remains of the badly battered British division were withdrawn over the lower Rhine. Indeed, a large part of Holland was liberated, and Monty's plan, however, was not realized. Nijmegen would remain a frontline city for 7 months. Dear Market Garden veterans, welcome in our video film In the Trail of Market Garden. My name is Jaap Been, and I'm your host in this video film. Behind the camera, Robert Melson, who came up with the idea to make this film. The idea has grown out of the growing interest of veterans to visit the area, to visit the graves of old comrades, to retrieve old friendships and to attend memorial services. In this film we show you the club route from Joos Bridge near Valkenswaard up to the John Frost Bridge at Arnhem as it is now. When possible, we also show you old pictures. We are here at the Nijmegen Waal Bridge as we are members of the Nijmegen MGVA, and this huge bridge is one of the largest monuments of Operation Market Garden. During the war, this bridge, one of the vital bridges of Market Garden, was the one with the largest span in Europe, 244 meters. Let's go to Joos Bridge now, before we start in the middle of Operation Market Garden. Here we are at the monument for the soldiers of the Irish Guards, who captured the bridge by surprise on the evening of the 10th of September 1944, enabling the Operation Market Garden to be carried forward by a week. The bridge was called Joos Bridge in honor of Lieutenant Colonel J.O.E. Vandeleur, who was in command of the Irish Guards. Here we are on the other side of the Mooscheld channel. We just came from the other side, from the monument, where we made a film of the bridge and the monument. From this place a photograph was taken, but I better can give the microphone to Mac Israel now, who made a special study of Joe's Bridge. This is Mac Israel.
Here we are on the site of Joe's Bridge. In 1944 this bridge was taken on the 10th of September by surprise by the Irish Guards, which enabled the Operation Market Garden to be executed much earlier than anticipated. This is how the bridge looks now. We have a photograph of the original Joe's Bridge of 1944.
Here is the start line of the garden part of the offensive. Here stood the foremost tank of No. 3 Squadron, 2nd Battalion, Irish Guards, leading 30 Corps in the attack. At 1435 hours, Lieutenant Heathcote, in charge of his tank, ordered his driver, "Advance!" Operation Garden had started.
Hello BBC, this is Chester Wilmot broadcasting from an observation post on the border of Holland. In the bridgehead which British Second Army troops gained off the Escaut-Meuse Canal only a few days ago. Troops of the British Second Army are now fighting forward from this bridgehead and into Holland. And at the moment, the barrage in preparation for this attack is in full swing. And down the road on the right of this building from which I'm speaking, British tanks are rowing up towards Holland. In the garden at the foot of this building, a battery of 4.2-inch mortars has been firing hard for 4 or 5 minutes, and the dust raised by the burst of their shells is rising up all along the front of a wood which is held for the Germans. And now in the middle of that wood is a terrific explosion, evidently from one of the shells of our heavy batteries which are on the side of the canal. The terrific columns of smoke and dust are rising from that wood at the moment, and it looks as though we've hit either an...
About 2 miles onwards from the start line, Major Carrot, belonging to the German battle group Walter, had installed a well-concealed tank trap somewhere from the forest, from there. After the first 3 tanks had passed, all hell broke loose and 9 tanks were brought up by German bazookas and anti-tank guns. After the opposition had been destroyed with the help of typhoons of No. 83 Group Royal Air Force and the road had been cleared, the advance was resumed at 1630 hours. Here rest 222 British soldiers killed in action in Brabant. Here also are buried the Irish Guards and the Devons killed during the fighting at the tank trap. At 1730 hours, the Irish Guards reached the first bridge to be encountered, the bridge over the river Lommel, at the time a wooden emergency bridge. A new bridge has been laid, which is called Victory Bridge, in memory of the events of September 1944. A regrouping took place at 2000 hours. The advance on Valkenswaard was resumed. Valkenswaard was the first place to be liberated by the British during Operation Market Garden. At 2030 hours, Major Tyler reported that the Irish Guards had occupied the northern approach to Valkenswaard. Brigadier Gwetwick of the Irish Guards ordered the advance to be resumed next day. The 18th of September saw the marketplace of Valkenswaard, where we are now at the moment, packed with vehicles. Nowadays the marketplace is packed with quite different vehicles. On the 18th, the advance was resumed. After skirmishes near Aalst, the advance was halted by a tank trap, consisting of 4 concealed 88s on this spot. Only after an artillery stonk on the German defences, Lieutenant Tabor of the Household Cavalry Regiment could enter Eindhoven at 1800 hours, followed by the Irish Guards. The Americans of the 101st Airborne Division had occupied the northern part of Eindhoven, coming from Son. We're here in the center of Eindhoven. This is the Eindhoven or Woensel General Cemetery. Here on this General Cemetery, 564 British soldiers are buried. The land on which this cemetery stands is the gift of the Dutch people for the perpetual resting place of the sailors, soldiers and airmen who are honored here. Middle of Eindhoven. This is the shield of the 101st Airborne Division. Underneath is written the 18th of September 1944, Eindhoven liberated by the 101st Airborne Division and the 2nd British Army. Behind the shield is a monument dedicated to the liberation of Eindhoven. Here we are at Son. This is the Son Bridge, the bridge across the Wilhelmina Channel. We came from the right from Eindhoven and we will continue our road to the left to Sint-Oedenrode. During Market Garden, this bridge was blown up by the Germans. At the moment, the 101st Airborne Division approached the bridge. The Royal Engineers made a Bailey Bridge instead of the bridge which was blown up. We now at Sint-Oedenrode. This here is the Hengsenhage Castle. During Operation Market Garden, the headquarters of the 101st US Airborne Division. We're now at the memorial at Veghel. This memorial is in honor of the heroes of the 101st Airborne Division US Army under command of General Maxwell Taylor. Operation Market Garden, the 17th of September 1944 till the 28th of November 1944. Underneath is written, in everlasting gratitude, the government and the people of the Netherlands. We're now at the Uden War Cemetery. Uden lies on the main road between Eindhoven and Nijmegen and is about 29 kilometers from each. On the cemetery, about 700 burials. There are about 700 burials, of which 617 from the United Kingdom. On behalf of the film crew, I want to place a cross. We're now on the road crossing between Uden and Grave near Rijk. We came from Uden via this road and we continue our way via the Bossenbaan to Grave. Grave is that direction. On the background you see the Hellemolen, now called the White Mill. You may have seen it. This is Café Den Tol, not far from Grave. Behind Den Tol, the road which leads to Grave. The place is nearly unchanged since the war. Many photographs were taken at this spot, amongst others of the 8th Armored Brigade, which was in advance of the 43rd Wessex Division, and of the Dutch Princess Irene Brigade. We're now in the center of Grave. Behind me, the town hall of Grave. In many places along the route, you will find monuments. Some of the monuments are difficult to find. On the town hall, we see a monument dedicated to the 504 Parachute Infantry Regiment. Near Grave. The German defense of the Maas Bridge at Grave consisted of several anti-tank guns placed amongst others near the Van Sasse pumping station and on casemates. The Grave Bridge, where we are now, was taken from both sides by the 504 Parachute Infantry Regiment on the 17th of September. On the 19th of September, around 1000 hours, the first British tanks crossed the bridge. From September till October, the bridge was guarded by the Dutch Princess Irene Brigade. The 9-arched bridge has a total length of 520 meters. This monument in the fields near Overasselt is to remember the drop and landing zone of the 504, the 325th Glider Regiment and a battalion of Polish parachutists. From here, the 504 commands for the capturing of the Graven Bridge and the bridges across the Maas-Waal Channel. We're now at Overasselt. Behind me, the road which leads to Graven. On this historical place, the famous photograph was taken of the meeting between Browning and Gavin while they were waiting for the arrival of the 2nd British Army on the 19th of September. The place is virtually unchanged. On the photograph, the chimney is visible of the dairy factory. The smokes from the chimney indicates that life goes on. Let's see the place of the former dairy factory now. We're now at the place of the in the meantime disappeared Molenhoek or Lock Bridge at Heumen. The bridge was there during the war. After violent fighting and the withdrawal of Germans on this little peninsula, the bridge was captured by the Baker Company of the 504 on the 17th of September. It finally happens to be the only usable bridge across the Maas-Waal Channel. During the Waal crossing of the 504, the gardening of the bridge was taken over by the Goldstream Guards. The bridge was pulled down in 1990. A monument not far from here remembers the Dutch soldiers who died on the 10th of May 1940 when the bridge was captured by the Germans. This is the road which leads to Overasselt, the road we just came from, and we continue our way in that direction to Molenhoek and Malden. Here we are at the parish church at Groot Linden, on the other side of the river Maas, opposite of Mook. This place was not involved with actual fighting, nor was it part of the club route. Yet the place was unwittingly involved with Operation Market Garden. Let me tell you what happened here on the 17th of September 1944. Let me tell you the tragedy of James Martin's troop carrier and airbornes. On that day, a C-47 troop carrier under command of James Martin crashed here just outside the village of Groot Linden. The plane was struck by enemy anti-aircraft fire near the drop zone at Groesbeek. By skillful airmanship, Lieutenant Martin maintained his position and successfully dispatched his stick of paratroopers over the drop zone. One of the paratroopers was Lieutenant Foley, known from the device victory at Devil's Hill. During the crash and the inferno afterwards, 4 members and 1 paratrooper were killed. The funeral took place here at the local churchyard on the 20th of September 1944. The names of the 5 were unknown, even after the war, when they were reburied at Margraten. In 1983, a commemoration stone was found here at the inner side of the wall around the cemetery. On the stone was written, "Pray for the soul of James Martin and his comrades, killed here the 17th of September 1944. So finally, one of the names was found. And as the notice of disinterment mentioned that the 5 unknowns were evacuated to Margraten, a further search was started here. However, the search for James Martin was in vain. Only years later it was found out that they were not transferred to Margraten but to Neuville, as Margraten was just closed at the time. From Neuville, James Martin and his crew found their last interment in June 1950 in the United States. Until now, it has been impossible to trace the unknown person who knew the name of James Martin and who placed the memorial stone. Let's go to the memorial stone now, the only remainder of the tragedy of James Martin's troop carrier and airbornes. Bid voor de ziel van James Martin en zijn kameraden. Back at the Molenhoek Bridge again. From here I want to show you the Maas-Waal Channel and the bridge at Malden, which is the next bridge from here. During Market Garden, the channel was crossed by two other bridges. The bridge at Hatert and the one between Grave and Nijmegen, known as the Honinghutje Bridge. The bridges looked very similar as they were built by the same contractor. This is the bridge across the Maas-Waal Channel near Malden. The bridge was blown up by the Germans while the Able Company of the 504 came near to capture the bridge on the 17th of September. This is the bridge at Malden again. And we're now at the bridge across the Maas-Waal Channel near Hatert. Hatert is part of Nijmegen by now. When the Charlie Company of the 504 drew near the bridge on the 17th of September, they also found this bridge partly blown up. This is the Honinghutje Bridge on the road between Graven and Nijmegen. After violent fighting in the night from the 17th to the 18th of September, the bridge was captured by a combined action of the 504 and the 508 under command of Lieutenant Lloyd Pollett. Shortly before the bridge was captured, the railway and road bridge was blown up. When the Guards Armoured Division arrived in the morning of the 19th of September, they found the bridge not suitable for motorized traffic. You now see the new bridges. Graph of the blown up bridges across the Maas-Waal Channel. We're now at the Mokerschans near Mook. The 505, who landed at Klein Amerika near Groesbeek, was ordered to capture the Mook railway bridge. From this place they heard a tremendous detonation and saw the bridge blown up. From here we have a good view over the River Maas and the railway bridge. Next to the railway bridge, the Mook viaduct, till where the 505 was driven back during the Battle of Mook. Here we are at the place of the Venice Temporary Cemetery near Molenhoek, the largest temporary cemetery in the area. The cemetery was situated behind the former brewery of Van der Broek, now called the Raaf. It was most commonly called the American Cemetery, as most of the 836 soldiers killed in action in Groesbeek and Nijmegen area were Americans. Also, 38 Britons and 3 Canadians were temporarily buried at Molenhoek. The Americans were reburied at Margraten in the US and the British soldiers at Mook. The brewery is open to the public and has a small museum. From the cemetery is nothing left except for an old cross and a sign which was placed at the entrance of the cemetery, and old photographs. We're now at the back of the temporary cemetery. The It's now being used for agriculture again. Many photographs are taken from this site. Also, the photograph you just saw was taken from this side. We're now not far from the back of the vanished cemetery. This monument remembers the soldiers of the vanished cemetery. There is a discrepancy between the number of burials mentioned on the monument and the real number of 836. You can find the monument along the road opposite of the Molenhoek Motel of Van der Valk at Molenhoek. On the monument is written, "Here rested the remains of 637 gallant soldiers and airmen of the United States and British Armed Forces. In the fall and winter of 1944 they gave their lives to free the Netherlands of Nazi tyranny." Smoke. During the Battle of the Wall Bridge on the 20th of September 1944, a concentrated German attack took place on the 504 here in the middle of Mook. In the afternoon, Mook was recaptured by the Germans and the lock bridge near Heumen was in serious danger. Mook became a battlefield and most of the inhabitants took the flight to the woods and the neighboring town of Molenhoek. Through the efforts of James Gavin, the Goldstream carts were called in and in the evening Mook was recaptured again. The threatening of the Nijmegen bridgehead and the lock bridge near Heumen was averted. During the fierce fight in the streets, 20 soldiers and 8 inhabitants were killed and many buildings destroyed, amongst others the town hall of Mook, here on our right hand side. A miracle of miracles, the church of Mook remained almost undamaged. The church of Mook is on our left hand side. Also, Eric Holmes of the 1st Battalion of the Suffolk Regiment died here in Mook. This is well remembered by his fellow comrades as they buried him here in Mook. But never in the years afterwards they or his family could find his grave. Eric was not buried at the Mook Cemetery, nor was his name mentioned in the Roll of Honor at the Liberation Museum at Groesbeek. With the help of Piet Kremers from Beek, his grave was finally found here at the graveyard near the church of Mook after a search of 45 years. This is the British War Cemetery at Mook, along the road to Groesbeek. During the German occupation, the road was called the Adolf Hitler Allee. That is the way to Groesbeek. The soldiers buried here were killed in Germany during Operation Veritable and in the Betuwe during Operation Market Garden and afterwards. One of the graves is of Robert Rose, the brother of Arthur Rose, the treasurer of the British Market Garden Veterans Association. This is the railroad viaduct near Molenhoek. The road leads to Groesbeek. This is the way to Groesbeek. Not far from here, Gavin had his first headquarters champion. The damage on the bridge of the old photograph is from an unsuccessful destruction in an attempt to stop the German invasion in May 1940. More successful was the destruction of the railway bridge near Mook and the road and railway bridges at Nijmegen. We've now arrived in Malden. Behind me, the main road to Nijmegen. The road leads from Mook to Nijmegen. Nijmegen is to the right. Here is an old school, an empty school during the war, and on the 19th of September it became the headquarters of Brian Horrocks and Boy Browning. Here Horrocks promised the canvas boats for the Waal crossing to Gavin. Here we are in the center of Malden again. Behind me the road which leads to Nijmegen. Nijmegen is to the right. This here is a bad example of a Dutch windmill. During Market Garden, a large shoved airfield called Kluis was constructed from this windmill into the direction of Nijmegen. As the wings formed a potential danger for the approaching airplanes, they were removed at the time. In April 45, the airfield stationed 3 squadrons of Typhoons, 1 squadron of Spitfires, 1 of Tempests, and finally 1 squadron of the first Allied jet fighters, the Cluster Meteor. Also, the transport of wounded soldiers by means of Dakotas took place from this airfield. An accurate shell fire, a possible sign that Gavin's first headquarters had been discovered, his headquarters had been removed to this triangular plot of woods. We are here at the road crossing of the St. Anna Street, which leads to the Keizer Karelplein roundabout, and the Scheidingsweg, which leads towards hotel restaurant Sionshof. Here we are at Hotel Restaurant Sionshof, the assembly point of the Guards Armored Division and meeting point with the 82nd Airborne Division. During the entire operation, It was also a meeting place for all those war correspondents who hoped to participate in crossing the rivers. In the entrance hall of the hotel, a tablet remembers Operation Market Garden. This is the plaquette inside the Sienshof Hotel, dedicated to Operation Market Garden, the plan of Montgomery. It's all written in Dutch. All the famous dates are mentioned. The 18th of September, the main post office in Nijmegen occupied. Arrival of the British Guards on the 19th. The 20th of September, the wall crossing. 21st of September, the continuing to Arnhem. 26th of December, the withdrawal over the river Rhine near Arnhem. Opposite the road, the Nemo Seminaire, which was a British hospital during the war. Not far from here, on the other side of the road from Groesbeek to Nijmegen, and next to the Sienshof, was another small temporary cemetery. We're now at Groesbeek. The center of Groesbeek is along this road. This restaurant, called the Old Mill, at the border of Groesbeek, was a meeting point at the onset of Veritable. You probably know the place as it is at the beginning of the Wielerbaan, not far from the Liberation Museum. We are here at the Liberation Museum at Groesbeek. The museum presents the documented story of the airborne landings, the advance of the ground army, and of all soldiers and civilians in the Nijmegen area involved in the operation. The museum also shows the refugees of war and what it took to restore the freedom and democracy. Furthermore, it serves to express our gratitude for our freedom, for which so many risked their lives during Operation Market Garden. In the dome of the museum, the names of killed soldiers who are buried in their homeland are mentioned on the Roll of Honor, or when they have a grave here listed in books. A real Dutch windmill this time. The mill is called the South Mill, and you can find it in Groesbeek along the road to Bredeweg. Especially during and after the airborne landings, the mill served as a beacon and observation post for the Allied forces. The mill survived the war relatively undamaged. At short distance from the mill, a monument in memory of the liberation of Groesbeek is placed. At Klein Amerika, near Groesbeek, remembers drop and landing zone N of the 505 Parachute Infantry Regiment. Shortly after the landings, the first jeep appears in the center of Groesbeek. vociferously hailed by enthusiastic villagers with heads raised and children on their shoulders. This monument also honors the tens of thousands of soldiers of Creera's 1st Canadian Army who held the front line between the Maas and the Waal in the winter of 1944-1945. We are here still in Groesbeek at the monument at Klein America, and off and on we are remembered on these landings and the war in this area less than a lifetime ago. Let me translate the preface of Norbert de Groot's book As Stars from Heaven. This book is dedicated to the war in the Nijmegen salient. On the cold and misty morning of the 22nd of March 1957, a 21-year-old farmer's son from the Heikant of the Nijmegen area coupled his ploeg to his tractor and drove into the field. Pasture intended for the culture of feeding beets had to be grubbed to 20 centimeters below the surface. Track after track the pasture disappeared under violence of the machine and became arable land. Towards 11 o'clock, the father of the young farmer came to see how the work has proceeded. Suddenly, the machine rose. Was the point of the plowshare struck upon a piece of iron? This happens very often. However, to the astonishment of both men, the mortual remains of a parachutist came to the surface, wrapped up in a green parachute. This incident agitated the tongues in the area for the 100th time. Again the conversation blazed up about the glorious and at the same time disastrous autumn of 1944, when on a beautiful September day thousands of parachutists dropped out of the air and the area of Groesbeek, Mook, Bergendal, Beek and the polder of Ooi became the battlefield during violent fighting. The list of missing soldiers of those days counts tens of MIEs, cases which has never been solved, and for that reason there is no doubt that many soldiers killed in action still rest in many unknown places. The mortual remains of these soldiers are still be found. In January of this year, the mortual remains of 2 British soldiers were found in the back garden at Oosterbeek. This is the monument at the Koningin Wilhelminaweg in the little village of Bredeweg near Groesbeek. Here, the British Airborne Corps headquarters under General Boy Browning landed on the 17th of September with Horsa gliders as their winged horses. At the bottom line of the monument is written, "Pilgrim, let your love lend you wings when necessity calls." Here we are at the drop and landing zone T of the 508. In these fields, on either side of the wielerbaan, the landing took place of 2,000 Red Devils. This is the wielerbaan leading to the Liberation Museum and to Germany. And the road here is the road leading to the Canadian War Cemetery. Also from this point, around 300,000 British and Canadian soldiers set off on the 8th of February 1945 for Wesel and the Rhine on Monty's Operation Veritable. The monument on this side of the road commemorates both the landings of the 508 and the start of Operation Veritable. Here we are at the Canadian War Cemetery at the Zevenheuvelenweg between Groesbeek and Nijmegen. The cemetery is the largest in the area. Here more than 2,300 of our liberators found their last resting place. Most of the burials are Canadians, killed during Operation Veritable. Also, 268 British soldiers are buried here. This memorial, 2 colonnades, with more than 1,000 names carved in the back walls, honors the Canadian, British and South African soldiers who were killed during the advance from France. Their bodies have never been found or identified. Just as the other landing zones near Groesbeek, the ground on which these buildings are situated were captured just in time on the 18th of September 1944, before the 2nd Airborne lift, fortunately delayed by early morning mist, arrived. As a member of the film crew, I would like to honor the soldiers who are buried here at the Canadian War Cemetery. The cemetery is always kept in impeccable condition and are a credit to the War Grave Commission and its supporters and helpers. The cemetery is often visited. Witness the fact that the guest book is signed nearly every day by visitors from all over the world. Each year, on the 4th of May, a large ceremony is held here. Last year, 1992, Pastor Turling from Groesbeek spoke about the text on the gravestones and explained the words sapper and driver, amongst others. Probably not commonly known are the ceremonies held here on the 3rd day of the Nijmegen 4-day marches. During these ceremonies, soldiers from all over the world are told by their officers about the ultimate sacrifice paid by young soldiers in a small country far away from their homeland. From here, at the back of the cemetery, you have a good view on the landing zone of the 508. In the winter of 1944-1945, the wooded parts of this area were used as storage place for the huge amount of material that was necessary for Operation Veritable. On the 17th of September 1944, a Dakota C-47 made a forced landing not far from here. This is the Liberation Monument at Beek, dedicated to their liberators. The 5 pylons symbolize the municipality of Beek and Ubbergen. Of the 5 plaques connecting the pylons, the left one displays the Ubbergen coat of arms and the emblem of the All-American 82nd Airborne Division. The large center one shows the Red Devil, the emblem of the 508, the liberators of Beek and Ubbergen. Underneath are the dates of the landings and the inauguration of the monument. 1944, the 17th of September, 1981. The monument is situated in a small park which is dedicated to Lieutenant John Foley of the 82nd Airborne Division. On the other side of the road, the town hall of Beek Ubbergen. We will show you an old photograph of the same place. The polder of Oe. Before we go to Devil's Hill, we show you a panoramic view. You now see the little town of Sieflich in Germany. You see that church tower over there. More to the right, you see the German border. And over there, you see Devil's Hill. More to the right, we see the city of Beek. This is Beek and Ubbergen. You see the forest of Beek Ubbergen behind it. And here we see the power station of Nijmegen and the Nijmegen bridge. We are now in the woods of Devil's Hill near Beek, so doggedly defended by Lieutenant John Foley and his men in the September days of 1944. There used to be a German cafe cum restaurant. It's now a Dutch pancake restaurant for many years. Now you see Germany. The church tower is from the little village of Sieflich. On the slopes of Devil's Hill there are still traces of many foxholes and slit trenches from which American paratroops put in a heroic fight to stem the fierce German attacks on the 17th and 18th of September. This is one of the foxholes. This memorial column at Bergendal was erected in gratitude for the liberation and to commemorate the fallen. It's not far from Devil's Hill, where, as well as in the nearby woods, long and heavy fighting took place. We're now back at Hotel Restaurant Sionshof near Nijmegen. From here we will enter Nijmegen via the Nijmegenbaan, a route most of you must have followed either by tank or by foot. That's the Nijmegenbaan. This is the main post office at Nijmegen. Except for the money machine in the wall, the place is barely changed. Wrongly, it was supposed that the detonator of the Nijmegen wall bridge. On the 20th of September, British cars had a tea break in front of the post office, shortly before the battle for the wall bridge. The bridge across the River Waal was captured by the Grenadier Guards and the 504 in the early afternoon of the 20th of September, after the 504 crossed the river in canvas boats. At the time of the crossing, however, the northern approach of the bridge was still controlled by the Germans, and it would last till about 1900 hours before Sergeant Peterson's troop of tanks crossed at first the bridge. The bridge was strongly defended by the Germans, amongst others from the Falkhof ruin where we are now. This monument, an angel throwing a wreath of laurels, had nothing to do with Market Garden. Also, it could have been placed to stimulate the King's Company of the Guards, who came from the left to drive out the Germans after fierce hand-to-hand fighting. After the war, money was raised by the civilians of Nijmegen to erect a monument for the best-known resistance fighter Jan van Hoof. As early as 1945, a commemoration stone had been laid on the spot where he died, and a carved stone was placed in one of the piers of the bridge that he saved by sabotaging the ignition wires of the blasting charge. This bronze standard bearer on the approach of the bridge is dedicated to all those who with Jan van Hoof were killed in the liberation of Nijmegen. This is the Hunner Park on the west side of the bridge approach. Here, on the 18th of September 1974, Allied military leaders interred a time capsule containing official documents and memorabilia of Operation Market Garden. On the stone is written, "At this place, on the 18th of September 1974, Allied military leaders interred a time capsule containing official documents and memorabilia pertaining to Operation Market Garden, the greatest combined airborne and ground attack of World War II, which began in Holland the 17th of September 1944. The capsule is to be opened on the 100th anniversary in the year 2044. Her Majesty Queen Juliana and Allied military leaders were present at the ceremony. This is the Belvedere, nowadays a restaurant with a nice view over the river and to the Waal Bridge. During Market Garden it was fortified by the Germans and formed, together with several anti-tank guns along the bridge approach, a strong defensive work. The German anti-tank gun in front of Belvedere is a remembrance of the fierce fight for the Waal Bridge. It's hard to remember now how fierce the fighting for this huge bridge was in those September days in 1944. After the Nijmegen Waal Bridge was captured, it was not out of danger. Daily the bridge was target of bombing raids, and in the night of the 28th to the 29th of September, German frogmen seriously damaged the bridge about where we are now at the main support. Immediately after the accident, a Bailey bridge was moved in by the British Royal Engineers to cover a hole in the superstructure. From the bridge we have a good view over the river into the direction of the railway bridge and to the lower city of Nijmegen, which in the meantime has almost completely been rebuilt. Underneath the railway bridge the river is visible, where Julian Cook and his men crossed the river. British Bailey bridges played an important role during Operation Market Garden, not only in Son, but also in this area. Between the railway and road bridge, a Bailey pontoon bridge was constructed to secure the island connection. Furthermore, Bailey bridges were situated next to the Graven Bridge, next to the Lock Bridge at Heumen and next to the railroad viaduct at Molenhoek. From the other side of the bridge we have a good view over the Ooipolder, where from September 1944 until February 1945 the front line ran straight through this swampy area. During the winter of 44-45 the Germans inundated a great part of this beautiful polder. During Veritable the polder was captured by the Canadian First Army. Before we cross the Waal Bridge, we visit the Jonkerbos Cemetery. The burials in this cemetery total 1642, mostly from the UK. In those September days, a big British field hospital was set up here. The number 10 British Central Clearing Station. Close to the hospital, a temporary cemetery was laid out. Another temporary British cemetery was situated at the Sophiaweg, opposite the Marienbos Hospital. This monument remembers the Allied soldiers who were once buried here. On the 20th of September, the 504 here made preparations for the Waal crossing. On behalf of the film crew, I want to place a cross here. We will remember you, Frank. We are now at the Waal Crossing Monument near Lent, opposite the Nijmegen power station. From the other side of the river, the crossing of 26 collapsible British boats under command of Julian Cook took place under heavy German fire from this bank of the river. Only 14 boats reached this side of the river. The surviving American paratroops managed to capture the Fort Hof of Holland, the railway bridge and the northern ramp of the traffic bridge. The unveiling of the monument took place on the 18th of September 1984 in presence of James Cavan. This old fort was a serious threat during the Waal crossing and afterwards, because of the anti-tank aircraft and machine guns on top of it. Via a small bridge and the brickwork tunnel, the paratroops reached the inner court, and on the old Indian way they recaptured the fort. Via the brickwork tunnel we now go to the inner court of Fort Hof of Holland. We're now on top of the Fort Hof of Holland. From this place we have a final look into the direction of Nijmegen, and we continue our journey on the island, from where some of the fiercest fighting of the whole operation took place. The battles were almost entirely British and later Polish airborne, with a number of British regiments engaged. This is the Liberation Monument in the center of Elst. On the 22nd of September, the Somerset Light Infantry managed to liberate Oosterhout. Near Elst, German tank formations stopped the Allied troops. 2 days later, the Somerset and Worcestershires managed to penetrate into the outskirts of Elst. After a small-scale tank battle had taken place in the center, the Germans yielded to the superior number of British troops, and before the evening of the 25th of September, Elst was free. This is the Elst Church, where the 94th Field Regiment of the Royal Artillery had an observation post in the tower. With their 25-pounders, they fought for a fortnight just south of Arnhem in support of the evacuation of the airborne. This is the Polish monument at Driel. On the 21st of September 1944, the 1st Independent Polish Parachute Brigade, commanded by Major General Sosabowski, landed at Driel. Time and again attempts were made to ferry Polish paratroopers across the lower Rhine in rubber dinghies under heavy German fire in order to help to maintain and reinforce the British perimeter around Hartenstein. During the night of the 25th and 26th of September, together with the Dorsets, they covered the evacuation of the British and Polish paratroopers from this perimeter at the cost of many casualties. On the left column, a plaque with the names of the 94 Polish soldiers who were killed. On the right column, the coat of arms of Poland and the memorial plaque fitted in 1946. During the night of the 25th and the 26th of September 1944, British and Canadian engineers, the so-called sappers, ferried about 2,400 British and Polish airbornes from the opposite side at Oosterbeek to the southern bank where safety was waiting. Canvas boats and those with outboard engines were most vulnerable, and they crossed under heavy German fire. They were just whispers and shadows in the night, quoting a British paratrooper who was one of the airbornes to be ferried across during the night. From here, the real ferry, the Westerbouwing, and the old church near Oosterbeek are visible. This monument at the Lower Rhine dike near Driel is dedicated to these brave engineers. This is the monument of the 7th Battalion Hampshire Regiment with the names of the 42 officers and men that were killed at the Battle of Randwijk and cleaning the enemy from the bridgehead they had formed from the stone factory opposite of this monument. The drawing of the badge and the words on the stone are from our chairman of the foundation and founder of the MGVA, Charles Reeves. This is the stone factory, which is the only monument here on the island which is left from the war. Before we enter Oosterbeek and Arnhem, we have a final look at the island. From this place, the Westerbouwing, a restaurant and recreation ground, we have a good view over the Lower Rhine into the direction of Arnhem and Elst. Visible are Arnhem, the Arnhem railway bridge, the old church, and the place of the withdrawal during Operation Berlin. Also visible are the monuments at the Lower Rhine dike. From here we can also see the Driel ferry and the church towers of Elst, and drill. The Westerbouwing was the theatre of heavy fighting during the Battle of Arnhem. During the withdrawal from here, the Germans fired randomly on the boats with airbornes, while the artillery of the 30th Corps laid a fire curtain around the perimeter. Here one is automatically confronted with questions as: in how far was Market Garden a success, and where did it go wrong? Was it a 90% success, and can we say this in presence of relatives and those who survived Market Garden and the hell of Arnhem? Let me quote part of a letter I recently received from my friend Dennis Sear from Berkhamsted. He believes that the end justified the means in Market Garden, and he doesn't think that there are many of his chaps who lay blame on their shoulders for what happened. Weather, luck and lack of vital information all played a part. Also, not a military strategic, he would contest the historian's claim of failure, and here is why. A number of bridges of strategic importance were taken and held. This meant that a number of natural defenses were lost by the Germans. I doubt if a step-by-step approach would have achieved as much, or in the eventual end of the war would have been achieved in the time it was. Number 2, the area was ideal for the build-up and preparation of Operation Veritable. Plenty of cover in the marshalling areas. In the meantime, the channel ports were freed and consequently lines of communication reduced and consolidated. Pas op. This is the old church at the Benedendorpseweg at Oosterbeek. A church with a very agitated history. The church was the point of rendezvous before the withdrawal. As it was situated in the southeast part of the perimeter, it was the subject of heavy shell fire of the tanks and artillery of the German Lonsdale Group. Next to the old church, a remembrance needle is placed. On the needle is written September 1944. Around this church, various British units fought until the end of the battle in order to make an eventual crossing of the Rhine possible. Also, next to the church, a remembrance stone is placed. On the stone is written, in September 1944, British airborne soldiers and their Polish comrades, with the support of brave Dutchmen and women, fought a grim battle around this ancient church in the struggle to liberate the Netherlands from Nazi tyranny. This stone commemorates all who took part in this action, and above all, those who died. Not one shall be forgotten. This is the house where Kate ter Horst, the Angel of Arnhem, took care of 300 wounded British soldiers. The house, the former vicarage of the old church, is situated not far from the church. In the garden, about 50 British soldiers were buried. In 1980, Kate and her husband Jan received a British distinction, namely Member of the British Empire. Kate had already received the King's Medal for Courage in the cause of freedom. Last year, Kate and Jan were knocked down by a motor car while they went out for a walk. Kate died and Jan was seriously injured. It was destiny that the tragic accident happened at the same place where she saw many English soldiers dying. On the 20th of September last year, I attended the service in this church, the Sint Bernulphus Church on the Utrechtse Weg at Oosterbeek. At the advance of the service, a large golden cross was carried in by the British airborne veteran Eric Collinge. After the cross was placed on the altar, Pastor Wissing told us the story of that cross. It was saved by the veteran during violent fighting in and around the church. He took the heavy cross with him while he swam over the lower Rhine during the withdrawal. Back in England, he presented the cross to his mother. 9 years ago, after his mother's death, he returned the cross to the St. Bernulphus Church. Next to the cross is written the verse of Psalm 91 verses 5. You will not fear the terror of night, nor the arrow that flies by day. Kate ter Horst spoke these words by the graves of the English soldiers. Meanwhile, we have been arrived at the Hartenstein Hotel at Oosterbeek. During Market Garden, a hotel and the headquarters of Major General Roy Urquhart, commander of the British 1st Airborne Division. The cellar was a medical aid post, which was overcrowded at the end of the 9 days of the Battle of Arnhem. The Airborne Museum gives an impression of Operation Market Garden and the Battle of Arnhem by means of, for instance, an audio-visual presentation, pictures, equipment, personal belongings, weapons, uniforms and dioramas, both of the Allied as well as the German soldiers. The tennis courts of the former Hotel Hartenstein were used to detain the about 200 German prisoners. This is the airborne monument in memory to those soldiers who paid with their lives during the Battle of Arnhem. Recently, the Remembrance Needle, as it is also called, was mentioned in connection with the death of Audrey Hepburn, the film star and ambassadress of UNICEF. During the war, she lived at Arnhem and in spite of her easy circumstances, she suffered as much as the rest of the Dutch population. Several relatives of hers were executed by the Germans, and she scarcely survived the hungry winter of 1944-45. It's quite well to understand why she refused to play a role in A Bridge Too Far and in The Back House of Anne Frank. Her memories with the war were too emotional. We have now arrived at the Ginkel Heath, between Ede and Oosterbeek, the center of the drop and landing zones of the 1st British Airborne Division. That's the direction of Ede. That's the direction of Oosterbeek. Here, about 10,000 airbornes landed by parachutes or gliders. Only 2,500 would return safely. The rest was killed, wounded, missing, or taken prisoner of war. This monument is in memory of those landings. Today, the monument was adopted by a primary school, the 14th of April 1993. The majority of the 2nd Parachute Battalion under command of Lieutenant Colonel John Frost managed to reach the Arnhem Bridge in the evening of the 17th of September by way of the most southern route from the dropping zone. The 600 odd men entranced themselves around the northern ramp of the bridge. Awaiting for the 30 Corps, they managed to hold the bridge for 7 days. At the end, there was a great shortage of ammunition, food and water. The number of casualties were numerous, and finally the bridge was a bridge too far. This monument, not far from the northern ramp of the John Frost Bridge, is in memory of the Battle of Arnhem. Behind me, the Eusebius Church. Last week the Council of Arnhem decided that the permanent exhibition about the Battle of Arnhem will be set up into the tower at a height of 73 meters. From the tower you have a good view over Arnhem, Oosterbeek and Driel. Also a lift is planned to bring you upstairs.
Old Testament lesson is taken from Psalm 130.
This is the war cemetery at Oosterbeek. The burials in this cemetery total 1754 and include the majority of casualties from the 1st Airborne Division landing in September 1944. It is the last place we film. It's also the last resting place of many soldiers of the Battle of Arnhem. To honor them and all the others who gave their life to free Holland from Nazi tyranny, often ceremonies are being organized. Today we organize our own small ceremony. Also another ceremony was going on today from the Lincolnshire Regiment. From this place we leave you. We hope that you could approve our film and that we will meet again on one of the commemorations held here in Holland.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.